I was halfway through my 9th week of basic training when I got the letter from my mom. The envelope was thin, almost careless, like an afterthought. Inside, her handwriting was shaky, uneven. "Call me as soon as you can. It's about Derek." My heart dropped into my boots. Derek was my older brother by 3 years, the golden child who could do no wrong in her eyes. We hadn't been close in years, not since high school really, when he started running with a rough crowd while I buried my head in textbooks and dreams of enlisting. Still, family was family. Blood, as my old man used to say, runs deeper than pride. I borrowed a phone from one of the drill sergeants during our short Sunday break and dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. "Evan, oh thank God," she said, her voice cracking. "What's going on, Ma?" I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. She hesitated. "It's Derek. He's been using your name." At first, I didn't understand. Using my name? What did that even mean? She rushed through the rest. Sometime after I left for Fort Jackson, Derek had gotten into trouble. Nothing new there. But this time, he needed an escape hatch, and that escape hatch was me. He'd gotten his hands on my social security number somehow, probably from that old fireproof box I used to keep in my closet, the one where I stored everything important. Birth certificate, high school diploma, social, all of it. Dumb mistake, leaving it behind. But I never thought I'd have to guard my life against my own brother. He wasn't subtle about it either. Credit cards opened in my name, personal loans, a lease on a brand new Dodge Charger with my identity on the paperwork. And now, my mom said, collection notices were starting to show up at the house addressed to Private Evan Miles, my name, my life, threatening lawsuits, garnishments, even arrest. I stood there, the base wind whipping across the quad, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" I asked. Mom sobbed into the receiver. "I thought maybe he'd fix it. I didn't want to upset you while you were training." Upset me? I hung up not long after, mind spinning. I was thousands of miles from home, scrubbing toilets and running obstacle courses until my legs gave out, dreaming of a future that might now be slipping through my fingers because of him. Derek, who couldn't hold a job for more than 6 months. Derek, who always found a way to talk his way out of consequences. At chow that night, I sat alone at the end of the table, poking at the mystery meat on my tray, wondering how bad it really was. Identity theft wasn't just a family squabble, it was a felony. It could wreck my credit, my security clearance, my whole career before it even began. But the worst part wasn't the paperwork, the credit score, the court summons I might be facing. It was the betrayal. He had looked me in the eye the night before I left, slapped my back, and said he was proud of me, said he knew I'd do great things. All the while, he was already plotting to hijack the life I hadn't even built yet. In that moment, I made a silent promise to myself. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to call him. No, I was going to handle this the way the Army had already started to shape me. Calm, strategic. I'd finish basic training, I'd get my orders, and when the time came, I'd show Derek exactly who he'd underestimated, and he wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, I woke up before reveille, lying in the dark with my hands behind my head, staring at the underside of the bunk above me. Around me, the other guys shifted and snored, blissfully unaware that one of their own was watching the first real pieces of his future crumble like dry leaves. I made a decision right then. No distractions, no drama. I would finish what I came here to do. Getting through basic wasn't just about push-ups and rifle drills. It was about learning how to survive pressure, how to stay sharp when the world tried to squeeze you into dust. And this was pressure, the real kind. By the time we formed up for PT, my mind was locked down tight. Each run, each climb, each shouted order was just another step toward regaining control. I was building something, piece by piece, inside myself, something my brother would never be able to touch or tear apart. There were moments it tried to sneak up on me, though. During mail call, when someone else got a letter from home stuffed with news about birthdays and baby showers and everything I was missing. During downtime on Sundays, when a few guys would video chat with family, and I'd sit on the edge of my bunk, staring at my boots, knowing that even if I called, there wasn't much left to say. I wrote letters instead, not to my mother or anyone back home, but to myself. Tiny promises scratched into military-issue notepaper. Stay sharp, stay silent, plan, don't react. I kept those letters folded neatly in my footlocker, reminders of what I was fighting for. By week 10, we started working on field training exercises, spending days and nights out in the woods simulating combat scenarios. It was grueling, long hours in mud and rain, running drills until our hands blistered and our knees bled. But out there, covered in grime, I felt more like myself than I had in months. One night after a particularly rough exercise, I sat by the fire cleaning my rifle, when my squad leader, Moreno, plopped down beside me. He didn't say anything for a while, just ran a rag over his own weapon, checking the bolt assembly like it was the only thing keeping the world spinning. Finally, he said, real low, "You've been locked up tight since week 5. Everything good back home?" I shrugged. "Nothing I can't handle." He didn't push. Good leaders never do. They know some battles are better fought in private. But that moment stuck with me. I wasn't just hiding from my own anger anymore. I was transforming it, turning it into something colder, sharper, something I could use. By the time graduation rolled around, I had a plan forming. Not revenge in the way most people think about it. No fists, no screaming matches, no showing up at his door demanding answers. That would have been too easy for Derek to dismiss. No, I was going to dismantle what he'd stolen from me. Not with rage, but with precision. The day I received my orders, infantry school at Fort Benning, I made a call during my last free hour before shipping out. Not to my brother, not to my mother. I called a lawyer. An old buddy of my dad's from back in the day, a guy who knew his way around military law and civilian identity theft cases. He answered after 2 rings. "Evan Miles," he said, "heard you're making a name for yourself down there. What can I do for you?" "I need help," I said, voice steady. "Family trouble." He didn't ask for details, just gave me an address and told me to send everything I had, letters, notices, anything with my name on it that I didn't recognize. "We'll handle it," he said before hanging up. And that was the moment it shifted, the quiet before the storm. Derek thought I was just some kid sweating it out in Georgia, too busy learning how to shine boots and salute to notice what he'd done. He had no idea I was already setting the first domino in motion, and soon it was all going to fall. The first clue that things were worse than I thought came 2 weeks into infantry school. I was sitting in the chow hall, polishing off a tray of mystery meat and instant mashed potatoes when my phone buzzed, a rare event since my use was limited and closely monitored. It was a short, clipped email from the lawyer I'd contacted. "Need to talk. Urgent. Call when possible." I waited until lights out, when the barracks were quiet, slipping into the stairwell where the reception was halfway decent. I dialed the number and listened to it ring, my heart hammering low and steady in my chest. "Evan," he answered immediately. "You sitting down?" I braced against the wall. "Yeah." "Your brother didn't just open some credit cards. He opened a whole new life." In the short months I'd been away, Derek hadn't just racked up debt. He'd leased an apartment downtown, rented furniture, even gotten a job at a used car dealership under my name. Every piece of it tied back to me. Social security number, driver's license, bank accounts. And then came the kicker. "Evan," my lawyer said grimly, "there's a warrant out for your arrest." For a moment, I couldn't even process the words. "What? For what?" "Grand theft auto," he said. "Looks like Derek sold 3 cars off the dealership's lot. They think you, or rather the Evan Miles they hired, took the cash and ran." I sank down onto the concrete step, head in my hands. I could almost hear Derek's voice in my ear, slick and self-assured, telling me to relax, that everything would work out. It always worked out for him, because someone else paid the price. But not this time. Not this time. My lawyer had already started untangling the mess, filing affidavits, pulling surveillance footage, anything to separate me from the disaster my brother had created. But it wouldn't be quick, and it wouldn't be easy. Best case scenario, he said, we can prove you were out of state, in training. Military records are solid alibis. Worst case, it'll take months. And your credit, your reputation, it'll all be shredded in the meantime. I thanked him, told him to keep moving, and hung up. Then I sat there in the dark, thinking. Derek hadn't just been desperate. He'd been deliberate. This wasn't the kind of mistake you make in a panic. This was premeditated. Step by step, he'd assumed my identity, my life, like slipping into a new suit and buttoning it up nice and tight. He wasn't planning to stop either, not until there was nothing left of me but ashes. The next morning, while everyone else scrambled to get their boots laced and gear prepped, I moved with a calmness that felt almost alien. If Basic had taught me anything, it was that panic is useless. Only action matters. Over the next few nights, during precious slivers of free time, I pulled every string I could. I filed official reports with JAG, the Army's legal division, about the identity theft. Contacted the dealership's corporate office through a proxy email, hinting at irregularities. Quietly gathered documents, alibis, copies of every order and attendance sheet the Army had on me. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was preparing an offensive. The real turning point came when I requested, through my lawyer, a full credit report. When it came in, I pored over it line by line in the back of the barracks during firewatch duty. And that's when I found it. A business license, registered in my name. A shady LLC, set up in the same city where Derek was living. According to the filing, Evan Miles Enterprises specialized in private contracting and consulting. The kind of vague language you use when you're hiding something real shady under something that sounds real official. It wasn't just debt or fraud anymore. It was organized. A business built to launder stolen money. Suddenly, this wasn't just a betrayal. This was a calculated assault. And Derek, my own brother, hadn't just tried to steal my identity. He was building an empire on the ruins of my name. And he thought I'd be too busy crawling through mud to notice? He was wrong. Dead wrong. Planning revenge isn't like what you see in movies. There's no dramatic music, no montage of me sharpening knives or scowling into mirrors. No, real revenge, the kind that leaves a mark, is patient, methodical, and almost boring. It starts with information. First, I had to understand the battlefield. Derek wasn't just some idiot who made a bad call. He was a cornered animal now, and cornered animals don't think straight. They panic, they overreach, and that was the opening I needed. From my bunk late at night, I worked with my lawyer to trace everything. The fraudulent businesses, the credit accounts, the fake leases. I found patterns. Derek had tied all his activities to one address, a loft apartment he was renting downtown, using my name, of course. Big mistake. Because tying everything to one physical place made him vulnerable, tangible, reachable. Next, I needed allies. Not the kind with guns or fists, the kind with authority. I reached out to a military liaison who handled service members' legal issues back home. She was a civilian contractor, sharp as a tack, and when I explained the situation, she wasted no time. "You understand," she said over the crackly phone line. "This could affect your security clearance. We need a clean record." "I'm already working on it," I said, "but I'll need backup when the time comes." "You'll have it." Knowing the military had my six gave me the green light to go bigger. Meanwhile, I started gathering my personal evidence package. I wasn't just going to defend myself against Derek's fraud. I was going to turn the whole thing inside out. Photos, timestamps, witness statements from my drill sergeants confirming I'd been locked into training for every day Derek was out playing games. Transaction records showing charges being made in cities I hadn't even seen. Surveillance footage from the dealership showing me, Derek actually, walking the lot. My lawyer was a machine, moving quietly, filing preliminary complaints, freezing anything tied to the fake businesses, issuing cease and desist notices. Piece by piece, we were setting the stage. But paperwork alone wouldn't crush Derek. He needed to feel it, really feel it. The trap needed to be personal. So I baited him. I had my mom, who still had some contact with him, mention, casually, that I might be getting a big re-enlistment bonus soon, a fat $20,000 check just waiting to hit an account. Of course, there was no bonus. Infantry school doesn't hand those out just for showing up. But Derek didn't know that. A week later, we saw the first nibble. A new checking account opened in my name, using my social again, at a different bank. Another fake email address, another fake mailing address. He was setting up to intercept the money he thought was coming. Greedy, predictable, sloppy. Exactly what I needed. By the time he set the hook, I had the feds, real federal agents, watching. Military identity theft isn't just a state crime, it's federal. Especially when it involves fraud across state lines. Especially when it involves a soldier. I didn't smile when I got the call from the liaison confirming the case was officially opened. I didn't cheer or punch the air. That's not how you win wars. You plan. You move pieces into place. And you wait for the perfect moment to strike. Derek thought he was outsmarting a dumb kid who spent his days cleaning rifles and memorizing marching orders. What he didn't realize was that the Army was doing more than training my body. It was training my mind. And when you're trained to endure pain, to stay patient, to outthink the enemy, well, you learn how to make sure the enemy defeats himself. The first real move came on a Wednesday morning. I was standing in formation at Fort Benning, the Georgia sun already burning through my uniform, when my phone buzzed quietly in my pocket. A message from my lawyer. Stage 1 complete. He's biting hard. It was all I needed to know. The bait had worked. Derek had started transferring money into the fake checking account he opened in my name, prepping, I figured, to receive the fake bonus he thought was coming. What he didn't know was that the account had already been flagged. Every transaction he made was being logged, traced, and quietly passed along to the agents assigned to the case. Meanwhile, we moved on to stage 2, expose and isolate. Through my lawyer's contacts, we pushed a small but deliberate error into Derek's web of lies, a mismatch on the business registration for Evan Miles Enterprises. A detail tiny enough that Derek wouldn't catch it, but big enough that when the banks audited their flagged accounts, it would throw everything into doubt. Sure enough, 3 days later, I got another update. Fraud team involved. Assets frozen. He's scrambling. I pictured Derek pacing around his overpriced loft, watching his credit cards get declined one after another, wondering how the walls were closing in so fast. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was what came next. My lawyer had arranged for a private investigator, someone he trusted, ex-military himself, to quietly stake out Derek's apartment. We weren't just looking to catch him slipping up, we were looking to document everything for the inevitable court case. The reports started coming in like clockwork. Day 1, Derek arguing loudly with someone over the phone in the parking garage. Words like money, lawyer, and mistake floated across the air. Day 2, Derek trying to close out accounts, rushing between banks like a man trying to plug leaks in a sinking ship. Day 3, Derek packing up boxes, moving electronics, cash, and personal items out of his apartment, possibly planning to run. He smelled the trap now, but it was already too late. because on day 4, the final nail was hammered in. Using the flagged checking account, the federal agents had secured a search warrant. That morning, just as Derek was trying to load a flat-screen TV into the back of a rented van, 2 unmarked cars pulled up at the curb. Agents stepped out, calm, composed, the way professionals always are when they know they're holding all the cards. Witnesses said Derek tried to argue at first, tried to bluff, tried to swagger his way out of it the way he always had. But this wasn't some mall security guard or jaded local cop. This was the federal government. And they had a very thick file with Derek's fingerprints all over it. Fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, bank fraud, attempted money laundering. Each charge stacked neatly on top of the next, like bricks building a wall he would never be able to climb over. The text from my lawyer came just after lunch. "He's in custody. No bail yet. Great work, soldier." I sat alone on a bench outside the barracks, staring out over the fields where fresh recruits were being screamed at to run faster, stand taller, push harder. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel rage. I felt something colder, purer, justice. Derek had spent his life believing he was untouchable, that family would always cover for him, that the consequences were for other people. But he'd underestimated one thing. You don't steal a soldier's future. You don't hijack a man's life and expect him to just stand there and salute, especially not when that man has been trained to finish what he starts. Word traveled fast after Derek's arrest. I heard from my mother first, a tearful voicemail full of confusion, panic, and desperate apologies. She didn't know the full story yet, but she knew enough. The dream son, the favorite, had been led out of his apartment in handcuffs while the neighbors watched from behind half-closed blinds. By the time the weekend rolled around, the local news had picked it up. Small town, big headlines. Local man arrested in widespread identity fraud scheme involving active duty soldier. They didn't use my name, thankfully, but anyone who knew us could piece it together. Mom called again, this time just to beg. "Please, Evan, please tell them it was a misunderstanding. He didn't mean it. He's scared. He's still your brother." I listened to her voicemail once, then deleted it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even disappointed. I was finished. Meanwhile, the legal machine was kicking into high gear. The federal prosecutors moved fast, faster than I expected. Apparently, Derek's fake consulting business had accidentally flagged larger investigations into money laundering and wire fraud across state lines. What started as one brother's betrayal had exposed a much bigger network of criminal behavior. Derek wasn't just a petty thief anymore. He was a federal case. My lawyer explained it over the phone with the kind of grim satisfaction lawyers reserve for slam-dunk victories. "They're stacking the charges," he said. "He's looking at 10 to 15 years, minimum. Maybe more if he fights it and loses." "Will he fight it?" I asked. There was a long pause. "Knowing his type, he'll try. People like Derek always think they're smarter than the system, until the cell door clicks shut." I should have felt some kind of satisfaction. I should have celebrated. But mostly, I just felt tired. Weeks passed. Infantry school ground on, each day a blur of drills, marches, and rifle training. But under all the discipline and sweat, a quiet satisfaction started to build in me, a slow, steady flame that refused to die out. I wasn't the victim here. I was the survivor. And Derek, for the first time in his life, was learning what it meant to face consequences without someone else cleaning up his mess. I heard through mutual contacts that he tried to call my mother from jail, begging her to sell the house, liquidate her retirement, anything to post his bail. She refused. For the first time in her life, she said no. Maybe she realized what I had known for a long time. Saving Derek was just another way of letting him drown everyone around him. He sat there for 2 months while the case built, stewing in his own arrogance and fear. Finally, just before my infantry school graduation, my lawyer called with the update I'd been waiting for. "He's taken a deal," he said. "Plead guilty to multiple counts. He'll serve time, and as part of the agreement, full financial restitution to you is included. Restitution, expungement of fraudulent records, and a formal public acknowledgement of the fraud." I didn't even realize I was gripping the phone so tightly until my knuckles cracked. Restitution meant my name would be cleared, my credit would recover, my military record would stay clean, my future would remain mine. The formal acknowledgement was just icing on the cake. Derek would have to stand in front of a judge, under oath, and admit that he'd tried to erase me and failed. The day of the sentencing, I didn't attend. I had a graduation to get ready for. Combat boots polished, uniform squared off. While Derek stood in front of a federal court in handcuffs, trying to explain how he'd lost everything, I stood on parade grounds in front of my commanding officers, receiving my blue infantry cord and shaking the hand of the colonel who pinned it to my shoulder. 2 ceremonies, 2 futures, 2 brothers. And only one of us had earned the right to move forward. The news broke within days of Derek's sentencing. Local papers ran the headline, "Man sentenced for defrauding deployed brother, ordered to pay restitution and serve prison time." His mugshot was everywhere, that defiant, half-smirk wiped clean, replaced by a hollow, cornered look. The look of a man realizing, maybe for the first time, that nobody was coming to save him. I didn't gloat. I didn't forward the articles. I didn't post cryptic messages on social media. No need. The story did all the work for me. Friends from high school who had long stopped calling reached out with awkward, guilty messages. Old neighbors shook their heads in disbelief. Even my extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, who had always sung Derek's praises, fell eerily silent. Because here's the thing about betrayal. It's like a stain. It spreads, it clings to everything. And when the truth finally comes out, people don't just look at the guilty party differently, they look at themselves differently too. They wonder how they missed it. My mother called again, this time just to cry. She didn't ask me to forgive Derek. She didn't beg me to visit him. She just wept into the phone, mourning not only the son she'd lost, but the illusions she'd clung to for too long. I let her cry. I didn't interrupt. Some grief has to be carried, not fixed. Meanwhile, the restitution payments started. Every month, like clockwork, a small but satisfying deposit hit my account. Wages garnished straight from whatever menial prison job Derek had been assigned. It wasn't much, but it was symbolic. Every dollar was another reminder that he couldn't take from me anymore. Every payment was another chain around the lie he had tried to build. More than the money, though, it was the correction of the record that mattered most. The fraudulent debts wiped clean. The fake businesses shut down and dissolved. The outstanding warrants expunged from my name with official apologies from the court. And best of all, my security clearance, the key to my future military career, was fully restored. I was whole again. Not because Derek gave anything back, but because I fought, patiently and methodically, to reclaim what was mine. The Army recognized it too. After graduation, I was offered a spot in airborne school, a chance to push even further, test myself harder, earn a pair of silver wings. I took it without hesitation. I wasn't just rebuilding my life, I was leveling up. One evening, just before shipping out for jump school, I stopped by a small diner near the base. Ordered black coffee, a slice of pie, nothing fancy. As I sat there, staring out the window at the setting sun, a familiar face walked in. One of my old high school teachers, Mr. Davidson. He spotted me immediately, walked over, hand outstretched. "Heard about your brother," he said, voice low and sincere. "Heard about everything you went through." I nodded once. "I'm sorry, son," he said, "but I'm proud of how you handled it. You didn't let it break you." For the first time in months, I felt something loosen inside me. Some knot I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. "Thank you," I said. He patted my shoulder and left without another word. Sometimes, that's all the justice you need. Not the headlines, not the money, not even the court orders. Just the quiet acknowledgement that you survived, that you endured, that you're still standing. And the ones who tried to bury you? They're the ones fading into the background, powerless, forgotten, exactly where they belong. A year later, I stood on the tarmac at Fort Benning, the Georgia heat baking off the asphalt, silver wings pinned to my chest. I had made it through airborne school, bruised, battered, but tougher than I ever thought possible. Each jump out of the roaring C-130 had stripped another layer of doubt from me, until there was nothing left but a man who knew exactly what he was capable of. I was no longer the kid who left home hoping for a better life. I was someone who had fought, quietly, relentlessly, to take it back. Funny thing about survival, it doesn't come with trumpets or parades. It comes with small moments. A handwritten letter from my commander praising my resilience. A clear credit report delivered with an official stamp. A mother who finally saw her sons not through the lens of denial, but reality. I didn't hear much from Derek after the sentencing. Every few months, I'd get a bland update from my lawyer. Another payment processed, another formality checked off. He was serving time in a federal facility 2 states over, a place known more for its concrete than its compassion. I never visited, never wrote, never called. Some things don't deserve a second chance. In the quiet hours between duty shifts, I sometimes thought about what drove Derek to do it. Was it jealousy? Was it desperation? Or was it something worse? That hollow place in some people that can't stand to see someone else succeed without them. Maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was this. He tried to steal my life, and in doing so, he ended up erasing his own. I, on the other hand, was just getting started. After my first assignment post-airborne, I rented a small cabin outside of Fayetteville. Nothing fancy, just a simple place where the trees outnumbered the neighbors and the nights were filled with the sound of crickets instead of sirens. It felt good. It felt clean. I kept a photo on my dresser, not of Derek, not of my family, but of me, standing in my graduation blues, clean-shaven, clear-eyed, a man who had earned every step forward. Next to it, I kept a letter from the Department of Defense, a formal recognition of my service and an acknowledgement of the false accusations I had endured and overcome. 2 documents side by side, proof of where I came from and proof of where I was going. Sometimes on Sunday mornings, after a long run through the woods, I'd sit on the porch with a cup of black coffee and let myself remember, not out of anger, not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. Gratitude for the fire I'd walked through. Gratitude for the lessons betrayal had carved into my bones. Because in the end, Derek's greatest mistake wasn't stealing my name. It was underestimating the man behind it. He thought identity was just paperwork, just a number, just a name scribbled on a line. But identity, real identity, is built every day in silence and sweat and sacrifice. You can forge a signature, you can fake a document, but you can't fake character. That's earned, jump by jump, battle by battle, one quiet, relentless step at a time. And as I sat there, watching the sunrise burn the mist off the fields, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't the brother left behind anymore. I was the man who had endured, and no one, not even blood, could ever take that away from me again.